Hi, I'm Heather,
I'm Haley.
and we're the Dunnit Sisters, a Kansas City true crime podcast. This episode is on the death of Edward L. Voss Jr.
This episode is a little different because someone has come forward after 45 years with information that could solve this cold case. This case back in 1980 went all the way to the grand jury, and still they found no person or persons to prosecute. But now we have a new witness, someone that has never been questioned before because he was 9 years old at the time and driven over the state line to hide him and his little brother so that they couldn't be questioned by the police. Now, the one who the witness has said actually committed the crime is dead, but the one who stood idly by, just watching, doing nothing, and then helping cover up what he did is still walking around. So here is the eyewitness's account.
The eyewitness account is graphic and disturbing, so please be advised. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you because for the first time in 40 years, I feel like somebody's actually listening to me.
Yeah, after reading, I read some news articles on it, and I was just like,
Were you able to find anything more than that one I sent you guys?
Heather found one which described all the wounds or whatever, the autopsy, and just that right there, that made me sick.
Yeah,
So I can't imagine you holding that in, especially as witnessing it as a child. I don't know how you did it.
And I was scared to death. I was scared to death of my dad even before that. From ever since I can remember, I was scared to death of my dad. He was just always angry. Always. We lived in fear of that man. I went through a lot of guilt for a long time for not coming forward. And back in '95, I had an infant daughter pass away. And for the longest time, it really messed me up because I firmly had it stuck in my head that it was karma, that God was punishing me for not coming forward for all these years.
I understand why you'd think that, but no way.
A couple months ago, I called Clay County, the sheriff's department, and gave them all the information. And the only thing I heard from them, the lady called me back an hour later, and she's like, well, we don't have anything on it here. I'll find out if Kansas City knows anything about it, and I'll get back with you. Never heard anything back. And that's how I felt all my life. And then the realization finally hit me. What kind of woman wouldn't come forward? Because she stood there right beside me when this all happened and saw it go on. I'll just kind of start at the beginning and walk you through the timeline. My dad married. My dad's name's Dwight Elmo Nielsen Jr. He married Vicky Peshkin when I was about 5, and she became Vicky Nielsen. From like 78 to the end of the summer of 79, Vicky had gone to college and become a teacher, but she got burnt out on teaching, so she went to daycare, and she was helping run the daycare up at Ravenwood Wesleyan Church up off of North Brighton. And for whatever funding or some reason, they decided to shut the daycare down. So Vicky told some of the parents that had been bringing their kids to the daycare, if you guys want, I'll start doing daycare in the home when school starts up this year. And I'll take about probably, 8 or 9 kids. And that's what she started doing. She was working in the home. It was about the second week of January. Teddy's parents came to pick up Teddy and Becky. And they told us that a family member of theirs had died back in Ohio. And they had to go back there for the funeral. And would we be willing to watch Teddy for about a week? They would pay extra because, he was so young, they didn't want to deal with the funeral. And my stepmom said, yeah. So they dropped him off on, I can't remember if it was Sunday night or Monday morning. And if I remember right, Monday, there wasn't any incidences. The worst thing I saw was my dad kind of every once in a while just snicker or scoff at that kid. And then it started Tuesday at dinner. Like I said, the only thing that little boy knew how to say was mama. And my dad would generally come home from work in a bad mood anyway. So Teddy's sitting in this high chair and he's kind of crying and he's looking at my stepmom and he's going, mama. And my dad, and by the way, everybody called my dad Sonny, not Dwight. Sonny looked at him. He said, boy, shut up. That's not your mama. The little boy just kept crying. His mama. And my dad just kept getting louder and louder about it. And then it was like somebody flipped a switch. My dad jumped up. He yanked that kid up out of that high chair. And it was like he was playing a game of kickball with that kid all over the dining room. I mean, he bounced him off the wall. I mean, he kicked the kid so hard it bounced him off the wall. And he just kept kicking him. And I never understood that. He just kept kicking him. And I wanted to say stop. I didn't know what to do. I knew my dad was an angry man, but and we got a spanking once in a while growing up, but I'd never seen him do anything like this. And I was in shock. And my stepmom's she's sitting there, Sonny, stop, Sonny, stop. And I'm like, why isn't she jumping up and intervening? And then finally he stopped. And the kid just sat there and cried and cried. And he finally fell asleep on the floor. And then the next night at dinner, it happened again. The kid said, mama, and then he snapped and yanked him up out of that high chair. And then I think it was Thursday afternoon was the last time it happened. And I was outside and didn't see it, but I heard it. And then after dinner, my dad and I left to go to my Cub Scout meeting. And I remember he got a phone call in the middle of the Cub Scout meeting. And he came back from that phone call, and I could tell he was nervous about something. And usually when we went to go get ice cream or something after my Cub Scout meeting, we got in the car. I said, can we go get ice cream at McDonald's tonight? He said, we have to go straight home now. I said, what's going on? And he said, Teddy's really sick. And we walked in the house, and he was just laying on my stepmom's lap. Like he just glazed look in his eyes, 1,000-yard stare. He wouldn't move. He breathing real shallow. He looked like he was already gone. Just his body was still breathing, and he had a fever. And like I remembered my dad and Mickey telling me, go get ready for bed. And I remember as I was getting ready for bed thinking, things aren't going to be good tomorrow morning when I wake up. And it was about 4:00 in the morning, I think, I started hearing all the screaming. And I sat up in bed and I knew, oh God, something's wrong. And like my bedroom door got kicked open and a light got flipped on and my dad was just right there in my face. Get your fucking ass up out of that bed. Go get your brother dressed. Both of you get to his fucking room. And I mean now, God damn it, move here. Just screaming at me. I started crying. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on yet. So I had to go through the dining room to get to my brother's room. And like the living room is right there, and I looked over, and Teddy was laying face down on the floor, and I knew he was dead. The bruises that I had already started to see were dark, and his skin was just, his chest wasn't moving. I knew. And I looked at my stepmom. I said, he's dead. And before I could even get dead out of my mouth, she just pushed me into my brother's room. She's like, God, just go in there, get your brother, and get him dressed. Like, okay, next thing I know, the door's busted open. This cop didn't even knock. He just walked in. He's like, where's the child? And he sees Teddy laying on the floor, and he looks at my dad and Mickey, and he's like, does anybody have a handkerchief? And to this day, that is the reason why I always carry a handkerchief. There wasn't a fucking handkerchief in the house, but for some reason that cop thought there was something he could do if he had a handkerchief. He was like, find me a handkerchief now. And to this day, I always make sure I have a handkerchief because of that. And they couldn't find one. I mean, they were tearing open dresser drawers. I was tearing shit out of the closet. My little brother's crying. And I go out in front of the room. I'm like, I can't find a handkerchief. And then these two firemen come in the door. And the one looked at the cop, and the second one right behind him looked down at the kid. And he didn't even pause. He just reached down and he scooped that kid up. And he started doing CPR. He said, let's go now. We're not even waiting for an ambulance. And they ran to the fire truck. And he was doing CPR on the whole time. And the cop turned around and looked at my dad and looked at Vicky and said, you two will not leave this house until somebody gets here to watch the two of them, and then I will escort you to the hospital. Said, you're not to leave my sight. And I think it was maybe 5-10 minutes later, my dad's parents, my grandparents showed up. And my dad and Vicky left, and I took my little brother in the kitchen and making breakfast for him. And I don't think it was even 15-20 minutes later we got the phone call that he had died. And my grandma said, your dad wants to talk to you. And I got on the phone, and my dad said, there's about to be detectives all over the house. Keep your fucking mouth shut, or you're probably going to end up just like that kid. And if I wish I had some video or something of my dad, and you would understand why I firmly believed if I didn't keep my mouth shut, he would kill me. So I just sat there in this chair in the dining room with my little brother, with my grandparents, like one on each side of me, like guarding us. And these homicide detectives, I mean, there's like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of them. And they just taking pictures of everything. And they're looking at me and my brother the whole time. And I could tell. I'm like, man, they're going to come ask us questions. And I didn't know what I was so fucking scared. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't want to lie to them. But if I don't, my dad's going to kill me. And one of them started to come over by me, and he said, hi. And I just kind of was like all reluctant. I was like, hi. And my grandfather immediately was like, shut the fuck up. Don't talk to my grandson. And, I really don't even know the time for it. I'm guessing things are like 20, 30 minutes and stuff. Maybe 30 minutes later, Vicky's parents, my step-grandparents, walked in and said, go pack some clothes for you and your brother. You're going to be gone a while. And next thing I know, we're over in Shawnee Mission at their house. And I thought a few days or something. They took us to their house, and I think it was early afternoon when my dad and Vicky showed up there. And it was so weird because when they first came in, my dad and Vicky, they were sobbing and in tears, and my dad was like, oh, we're so sorry that this boy died in front of you. And This is such a sad tragedy, and I didn't really know how to react to it, because the whole time I'm looking at my dad and I'm not saying anything, but I'm thinking in my head, yeah, he's dead because you beat him to death. And I didn't understand back then how much money my step grandparents actually had, and I didn't know what had gone on. But my dad and Vicky said, "We don't know when we'll see you again." And next thing we know, it's like weeks. We're not even getting phone calls from my dad and Vicky. I remember every once in a while the phone would ring, and either my Uncle Bill or one of my grandparents would answer the phone, and they would get mad. They would be like, "God damn it, we told you people to quit calling." We found out later on it was press and detectives trying to talk to me and my brother. We were kept over in Kansas for about 2 months. We were never questioned. My little brother wouldn't have been able to tell him anything. You know, he was only less than a year old. He's even said he doesn't remember any of it. But yeah, and we were kept over there for a couple of months, and then one day, like it was middle of March maybe, I was told, "Get my stuff together, I'm going home." And my dad and Vicky came out to get us, and before we left, my dad pulled me back in the bedroom and he said, "You remember what I told you the day that it happened, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "We will never speak of this again. Do you understand me?"
So, according to an article back in 1980, it stated that Teddy received multiple lacerations and contusions of the liver, intestines, and other vital body parts, bruised scrotum, cuts. Sorry. See. Internal hemorrhaging and other damage to his system, bones, organs, and tissues that met his death. Officially died from hemorrhaging to the stomach, and according to the statements given by the two adults in the home, Teddy suffered slight injuries several times during his stay. On 3 a.m., the day he died, his breathing slowed drastically as she alerted her husband, though waited until 4 a.m. to call an ambulance. The doctor and others who examined him stated that he had been dead more than 12 hours, though the adults in charge insisted he had been alive at 4 a.m. The police reclassified the case to a homicide, which remains unsolved. The Clay County prosecutor at the time, William S. Brandon, questioned who are they going to charge. The evidence wasn't strong enough against one particular person, even though there were only 5 people who witnessed the murder. There was the new witness, his little brother, who was 1 at the time, Teddy, and the 2 adults who were left in charge. Can you imagine this happening today?
No, because you know that 9-year-old would have been questioned by police. And just to reiterate what the witness said, the witness says that Teddy was abused horrifically for 3 days. For 3 days. And the stepmom at any time could have gotten him help. The witness has been trying to tell his story for quite a while, and in October he was referred to us.
And after the interview the following day, October 28th of last year, thinking that the new witness at that time gave a statement, we waited 2 months for an update. And on December 23rd, I called the detective, and she said, and I quote, "The prosecutor still hasn't gotten back with me on what they're going to do with that one." I asked her if I could contact the prosecutor to push it along, and she said she couldn't give out that information. So I looked up the information and emailed him and received a call from the prosecutor 7 days later asking me for more information on the case because the detective never contacted the prosecutor. I was lied to. 8 days later, the witness received a call from the detective asking for him to come down and give a formal statement about a week later, which he did.
And Haley's the one who drove him to the police station to be interviewed by the detective. And she did that to make sure that he would go there and give his statement.
And he wanted moral support.
And he wanted moral support from you. But Haley wasn't allowed in the room. But Haley waited outside while he gave the interview.
And we said after that the next step would be to contact the stepmom. So we waited about a month, and I called the prosecutor and was told pretty much that the ball is in KCPD's court.
This isn't a game.
And I quote, "They don't inform us until they're done, but hasn't seen anything from them yet. He's waiting on results, but felt it would be hard-pressed to bring charges unless statements have changed." I called him right back, leaving a message because I was thinking obviously statements have changed due to the new witness, but I never received a call back. I then called the detective and was told that, and I quote, "We have not been able to get in touch with the stepmom yet, so there are no updates yet. The prosecutor hasn't decided if they're even going to look at this case yet, so I don't know exactly what all they are needing from me to relook at it or revisit it or anything. I just know I want to talk to her just so I can have that statement." So when I hung up the phone, in my mind, it was that she doesn't know how to do her job, that she's lazy, and she doesn't care. So I then had to send an email February 12th, giving the detective the stepmom's address, phone number, and even the address of the church she attends to, which I found out before she had a daycare in the home. She was the director of the daycare of the church she still attends to. And still we haven't heard a thing. This really scares me because it's now up to the detective to provide the prosecutor with new evidence to prove that this case can actually move forward and that maybe someone can now finally be prosecuted and charged so that Teddy and his family can finally have justice, but I don't feel like she's going to do anything.
In the state of Missouri, there is no statute of limitations on accessory to murder. So we need your help. We need you to contact the detective and the prosecutor and ask them to interview the stepmom and to get this case moving forward so that Teddy and his family can have justice. The email address for the detective is naomi.vons@kcpd.org, and her phone number is 816-234-5043. The prosecutor's email address is michael.bailey@claycopa.com, phone number 816-736-8374.
And I keep playing Teddy's brutal murder in my head over and over. And I keep thinking about what the witness's stepmom could have done to prevent this a lot. You see your husband getting mad, you take the baby from the situation. I don't understand how hard that was. Then when you see he is hurting, the baby's actually hurting, you stood by and did absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. He was tortured and left to die slowly.
Alone.
Because why? Were you having a bad day? Did you not sleep well? If I could pull you from your grave and whoop your ass, I definitely would. And I don't understand why people don't remember what it was like to be a child. You just need to be patient. And I spoke with a family member of the newly accused who reminded me in other words about a quote, "Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done." And I truly believe these words when you're a man or a woman enough to speak your truth, which he died peacefully, I read on Facebook, before ever doing. Not that he was probably going to do it. He didn't deserve any peace. If this is true, there was a murderer among us for 39 years. He died 39 years later after committing this crime, just walking around like nothing happened, along with his now ex-wife. She is still walking around like nothing happened. They both have many friends. They both have many friends on Facebook. And I thought, boy, if they only knew what these people possibly are capable of doing, we need help. I don't care how old you are. You deserve to go down because you're a pussy.